I got a 2008 GMC Denali Yukon, not an XL. Gonna do front struts. And yes, this one does have Electromagnetic front struts. All right, because here it is right here, right on top of it. Can't really see it, but it's there. And here it is, just gotta figure out how to unplug it. Yeah. Yep. These are nice. Ah. Alright, I have to get back to you on unplugging it. Okay, to remove the connector, you push in on a little spring, just like the window crank spring on a manual window cranker. Push it, and it opens up and releases it off the top of the strut. This is what screws on top of the strut, and that's what the spring latches onto. It goes on top of that down there. It's an 18 millimeter. You want to remove that also. Kind of rusted on there. And also you got the 3 bolts on top of the strut. One of them had a wire retainer on it. So I'll remove the 3 nuts and then put this one back on with a couple threads, okay? Those are 18 millimeter. Do that to both sides, and then we'll raise it up. But make sure you put this nut back on there with a couple threads. Okay, I got the front tires off. Now what we need to do is remove the nut on the outer tie rod end, break the taper so you can move the knuckle back and forth. You need to remove this 10 millimeter on this little bracket. Spray down some penetrant, hopefully it doesn't snap off in the control arm. Also lube up your stabilizer link, because these are bad. Okay, once we got this off and this off, what we're gonna do is take the nut off the ball joint, put the nut back on with a couple threads, break the taper loose on it, okay? And then we'll pry down on the control arm, remove our nut after we broke the taper on with our sledgehammer. We'll allow the knuckle to come out. If you just take the nut off and hit it with break the taper, then the whole thing swooshes out. You don't want to do that because you don't want to be pulling your joint out of the housing on the half shaft, okay? Got the 10 millimeter bolt out without breaking it. If it gets tight, try putting it back in and soak it with some more penetrant. Remove the nut on the tie rod end, which is a 21 millimeter. And then you want to go ahead and hit the knuckle right there. Try not to hit the boot. Hit the knuckle a couple times, it don't come off, and give it a good hit on the bottom, okay? Get the nut loose on the upper ball joint. Broke it loose with a regular wrench, and then I used a ratchet wrench, and then I made sure it's still on there with a couple threads. Then I just went ahead and removed the 2 bolts on the bottom of the strut. And next we're gonna hit it right here with our mini sledge, break our taper loose. All right, broke the taper. Now all I need to do is put some tension on that upper control arm, and then I can remove the nut. I probably should have left those 2 bolts in there so I could have pried up against the spring on the strut. Yeah. See how that is? Now I can remove the nut. So I'll do those 2 last. I learned something new today. Just by breaking the taper and leaving it like that. And moving my tie rod in out of the way. Gave me access enough to drop the strut out through this way. Huh. Alright. Learned something new. Alright, so I put some anti-seize on my upper studs, and I put some anti-seize on my little shaft sticking out of the top. So you want this section pointing towards you because this is going to be towards the wheel. Okay? That's the one you're going to put your nut on. Going to hold the strut up for you. Okay, I fished the strut up through there. Got my nut on the top. So now I'm gonna have to pry down my lower control arm and move that strut assembly onto the platform for the mounts. All right, put my pry bar over the control arm underneath the strut, pulling my strut over it, put them down into the mounts. Now they gave me 2 new bolts, put some anti-seize on them, and I'll get them started into the fasteners. Okay, I got my lower mount, strut mounts in, the bolts, torqued them to 45 foot-pounds. Now all I need to do is pull down my upper control arm and go ahead and screw my nut back up. Use a ratchet wrench. If the ball stud turns, pull down harder on your pry bar. Push it into that taper. Okay. All right. Got the ball joint tightened up. Give it like a 65 foot-pound pull. Put your little bolt in there with some anti-seize on it, on that bracket. Snug that up. Go ahead and put your outer tie rod nut on there and give it a 55 foot-pound pull. And that'll be it for this side. I'm gonna go do the other side. If the other side changes, I'll let you know. All right, same thing. I didn't have to break the taper loose on the ball joint. I just pushed it out and came loose. I took off my nut and fell out the bottom. All right, so the same thing. Put it back up through here. Got my pry bar under here. Pry it down the control arm, pry it up on the strut, pull the strut over into the mount. Now I can go ahead and put my 2 bolts in there and get them snugged up and then torque them 45 foot-pounds. Time for the stabilizer link to cut it off. So I gotta go do the passenger side. All right, put the stabilizer link. What I'll do is I'll put the stabilizer link in there, everything except for the upper bushing and the washer and the nut. And what I'll do is I'll stick a pry bar in there and I'll lay on it and I'll push that sway bar down and tap on the lower sway bar bolt, push it up. And I'm pushing down with my pry bar. Make sure my this bushing is there, my washer, and then get my nut started. And then once I get it started, then I can relieve the pressure. And then I can go ahead and go do the other side. Once I got both sides started, then you can go ahead and tighten them up. I tighten them up till you get the bushings about like that fat, because usually they're like that. You don't want to smash them. They say you're supposed to run them all the way down, but sometimes when you run them all the way down, it splits the bushing. So just keep an eye on it. You got them tight, just so you got them in there pretty equal. And got some tension on the bushings. If you over tighten them, then they'll split prematurely, and you don't want that. Okay. All right, so we're all set here. And then what you do is you go ahead and put your tires on and torque your lug nuts to 140 foot-pounds. Lower it down, so that way when you lower it down, all the weight comes up and the strut pushes up against the strut tower. And then you can go ahead and put your nuts on there and torque them to 35 foot-pounds. All right. And then you got to put that little sleeve on there for your sensor connector. Go ahead and get your 3 nuts tight. Then go ahead and screw your little adapter on there. Use your extension, same size, 18. Snug it up. Put some dialectic grease inside your little connector. Bring it over and put it on top of it. Make sure you put it on top of it straight. Feel it around for it. Clip in. Push it down. Try pulling it up a little bit. It's good. And that's done. All right. That's it. Do both sides the same way. And that's how you do your front struts, okay? Hopefully I helped you out this video. And hopefully you can help me out by subscribing to me. And I appreciate it. And have fun.